Hey everybody, welcome back to 6 Feet Under Exhumed. I am Kari the Mortician.
I'm Faith, that mortuary professor. This is season 2, episode 8. And our special guest today is Gabe Schauf. Gabe is the program director for the mortuary science program at Milwaukee Area Technical College in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. He hosts NFDA's A Brush with Death podcast. And he is a father of 2 and owner of Eternal Ride, which, Gabe, why don't you tell us what Eternal Ride is and tell us a little bit more about yourself?
Sure. Well, I'll backtrack a little bit. So I am from the great state of Wisconsin. I grew up on a dairy farm about 4 hours north of where I am living now. And fun fact about me is I actually went to the University of Minnesota to be an actor. I was a part of the theater program there. My dream was to be on Saturday Night Live and maybe someday be on Broadway. And I did community theater and I ended up being a funeral director. So follow your dreams, right?
And it's not too late.
It's not too late. Yeah, no, it's true. I've heard that.
You sing?
It's been a while, but I have. Yeah,
like
a little singing, a little dancing.
Like,
yeah.
What?
Musicals and tap dance and all that. Yeah. I'm rusty, so don't expect anything now. But yeah, I was there for a year doing that and kind of figured I needed to find a real career. And at that time, I had a friend who was going through the funeral service program at the U of M. And he'd been bugging me for years about doing this. And I thought, maybe I should give that a shot. So I worked for a guy for a summer and got hooked. I really loved it and decided if I got into the program, I'd go for it. And I did. And it kind of went, well, we'll say uphill from there. So I worked in Minneapolis, Minnesota and Hudson, Wisconsin for a while. And then I moved to Milwaukee and I got a job at a funeral home here and then started part-time at MATC doing embalming labs. I did get hired as a full-time instructor there and eventually became the program coordinator. And as many people know, the NFDA is located in Brookfield, Wisconsin. So I'm just about 10 miles from their home office. And they recruited me to host the podcast. And I'll be honest, looking back at all of that, I mean, you couldn't have scripted this. There's no time in my life. I was like, here's what I want to do. And now I'm doing it. I mean, it's just, this is a God thing and a being blessed thing. And knowing the right people at the right time kind of thing. Along with that, yeah. So I grew up riding motorcycles on the dairy farm and have a Harley Davidson and ride with my family. And I worked with enough motorcycle families planning funerals to where you'd show them what we had for selections. Like, here's our urns and here's our caskets. They kind of go, ugh, this is it, huh? And I wanted to come up with something that was a genuine product for motorcycle riders. So I created Eternal Ride, and that's ETURNAL ride.com. So it's a little play on words there. But what it is it's a clutch cover or a derby cover that attaches to a motorcycle. So you could have somebody cremated and you could take a portion of their cremated remains and put them in this cover. And we get it hand painted or engraved. Or we do a gas infused photo image on there, and then they can attach that to their motorcycle. So, if somebody died, they're cremated, we could take their cover and attach them to their bike and off
What's
they go.
What's a derby cover?
Oh, so derby cover or a clutch cover, it's kind of the same thing.
I know what a clutch is.
Yeah, so same thing. It's
okay.
It's basically the access panel for the clutch of a motorcycle or for some of the gears on the motorcycle. So yeah, so I created that and it's kind of my side hustle.
That's awesome.
Well, the greatest idea. I think it's
yeah. We're talking about that today because our episode opens up with the man who is Santa. He's a mall Santa, which I don't know. I wonder if that's a fun job or a terrible job. I really can't decide. But kind of like the Easter Bunny. My uncle Art used to be the Easter Bunny at this park in Chicago where they did this huge thing, and I would ruin it every time because we'd go to the Easter thing to hide, to look at the eggs in the whole city of Chicago. It was a huge event, and I'd be like, "That's not the Easter Bunny. That's my Uncle Art." So, it's probably got good and bad things about it. But this particular man is a mall Santa. He is on his way to work and he's in his Santa costume. He's riding his motorcycle. And basically, it's just as simple as somebody runs an intersection and hits him and he dies. And his name is Jesse. What's his last name,
Jesse
Carrie?
Johnson.
Jesse Johnson.
Well, and I love this up. I'm loving the beginnings in this season because they're trying to throw you off like who's going to be the deceased or what's going to happen. And so he's like sitting in a lounge chair or, the recliner, and his wife's like yelling at him, and she's a very foreboding woman. And you're like, ooh, is she going to kill him like that one episode, or what's going to happen? And then she's like, well, you got to go to work, babe, and blah. And then he takes, and he's waving at these kids as he's going by in a Santa costume, and wham, and the thing goes rolling back in front of the kids. It's like very,
the helmet. Yeah.
very cliche moment, but I can't imagine those trauma of those poor kids watching Santa die. Like,
Oh, I can't imagine.
but
Well,
yeah. Go ahead.
I thought, there's Santa on a motorcycle and he's just doing his thing. And like you said, you're kind of wondering who's going to die, how's he going to die? And you see these kids bouncing a ball. And the first time I saw it, I was like, oh no, like what's going to happen here? And then just the death occurs and these kids are like, whoa. And it's like the helmet, like it was kind of comical, but very tragic. And like you said, kind of most likely traumatizing for those kids. But
Probably.
yeah, that show always has a really good way of surprising you with the death,
Yeah. And they've gotten very throw you off track this season, which I love, because you're like, oh, this is going to happen. Then it's like, woo,
Totally something
wait,
else.
that's not. So, and this one's called The Most Wonderful Time of the Year. It's taking place at Christmas, and we're getting ready back at the Fisher Funeral Home for Christmas coming up. And it is the day before, 2 days or so before, like it's the week of Christmas. And Ruth is running around telling everybody, you will be here at Christmas dinner. And I wrote down about kind of this opening scene within the funeral home that everyone's really intense with her. Like their reactions are really intense. Like, Mom, this is going on.
Yeah.
And it's like there's this energy that's big right now in the house.
Well, we find out, or we're reminded that it's a year from when Nathaniel Fisher passed, which again seems, I like how, because you hear people say, and I feel this way like with my own dad, I feel like it's been 10 years and it's been 2 days at the same time. And I think the show kind of makes the viewer feel like that, because you're like, oh my God, he's only been dead a year, but also like there's a lot of stuff that's happened in the last year. So I think that they're just all kind of on edge because this anniversary is coming up and they're not a family that talks about anything. And I think they're just worried about how that's going to play out.
I think it speaks to the fact too that, and Faith, you kind of mentioned that, but I heard a grief speaker one time, and he was talking about the anniversary of, I believe it's when his dad died, and he said, "This is my first, whatever it was, my first 20th Christmas without my dad there," and you kind of forget. You think, oh, the death happened a long time ago. We're over it. We've moved on. Things are good, but you haven't. And this is the first anniversary, and it's on a holiday. And you think of all the significance, which we see later on that episode, all those significant moments that the dad had with the family prior to or during those last moments that he saw them. And you think, yeah, that's been a year. And so everybody's got that on their hearts and in their heads. And then they're trying to get through the holidays, but celebrate the holidays. I mean, that's a lot of pressure built up into a small amount of time.
Yeah. So they're meeting with this. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, in a family that doesn't share their emotions. So they've all just, instead of going from here, they're like way up here now, but nobody's talking about why. And I think some of them don't even realize that it's anniversary. Like they're just kind of going along, and it's maybe not in the forefront to even realize, oh, this is why we're thinking about or getting emotional or getting all maybe anxious in some way. So yeah. So go ahead. They're getting ready to meet this family.
They're meeting this biker family, and they get to, I'm thinking about the part where they get to the selection where they're talking about caskets. Did you write down, because I know they say it's a something gauge casket. And they're like, it's the best of the best. And in my mind, I was like, no, it's not. But I don't remember what they said.
It was an off gauge. It
was some weird,
because typically it's 20 or 18 or 16.
Yeah.
There is a 15 out there, and I think there's a 19, but they're like off ones. And this was like a 13. It was like a weird gauge that
it was something really
it was
strange.
not normal.
No, it was not. Okay.
What they said.
Just wanted to make sure I wasn't crazy because I felt like that's not
a normal anything.
It's not normal.
Anybody, that's not a Batesville special or anything.
No, so that they would have that like in their little casket wall is probably not
odd.
too great.
Yes, odd. But yeah, the wife's there. She's brought 2 guys with her from the club, and this is when you kind of realize they're from a biker club. Very tight-knit organization, and they want what they want. And he was a big, pretty high up, I think, in the club, and so he was very revered. So they're going to go all out for him. And they say they want this casket, but they want to get it airbrushed to look like his bike, which, back in the day, like I think before we were recording, Gabe was saying, that would have been like you want me to do what?
Well, you would have had to and you were talking about how things have changed. They hand him pictures, and now, you would have a cell phone they'd hand you or something, and you would just go to the internet if you didn't already have somebody who I think most funeral homes could think of somebody that could do that, but you'd just go find somebody that could do that. And well, I don't know what they would have done in 2001, but go ahead with what you were saying about how things have changed.
One of the observations I have when rewatching these shows is my brain can't help but try to modernize things. And you think it's interesting how they handled things back then. And in this day with our profession, we talk about innovation and customization and personalization. And in that scene, they give them the picture of the bike and they go, we want it to be custom painted like this. And the boys are like, oh, sure. We'll do what we can. Nowadays, that's something that a lot of funeral homes have ready to go at that time. They've got a couple of guys on a list. They know some companies that they can reach out to. Faith, I mean, true. Same point. They're handing them Polaroids of what they want, where before it'd be like, well, jump on Facebook quick or pull up my phone and I'll airdrop you or email you some images. It would be really interesting to take 6 feet under and redo it in this day and age and just see how much of that mentality and that mindset changed. Not just in this episode, but I mean, all the episodes basically.
Or how much has actually stayed the same.
Yeah.
I think like if you go to some, I think small towns and maybe not as progressive changed funeral homes that are still, jewel toned from 1990 and, why change it? Because we're still that they are maybe not going to be progressive at all in some of those ways. So I think you're going to find both sides of the coin where some stuff is still very 20, 30 years ago, where others are, oh yeah, we've got somebody in the back who will do that for you, for you now.
Now, granted, this was years ago, but this reminds me of a call when I was working up north at a funeral home. We had a family that came to us after they decided not to work with another funeral home. And the reason for that was when they went to the funeral home and sat down to make arrangements, they pulled out a memorial folder that we had made at our funeral home for some other, community member. And they said, hey, for mom, we want a folder that looks like this. And the funeral director looked at it and he goes, we don't do that here. If you want that, go to the, so-and-so funeral home. And the family's like, okay, I guess we will. Thanks for your time. And so then they came to so-and-so funeral home and that's where we helped them. But it was over a memorial folder, and granted that was years ago, but to your point, there are still funeral homes that have that mentality. And as we all know, that's a pretty dangerous mindset.
Very much so, especially in the industry, I think in business where it is now, that there is a lot of people that don't believe they want to work with a funeral home as much as possible. Like, we want you hands off. We're going to do as much on our own. Like, you want to be as immersed in the experience with them, and to turn people away or tell them, no, we won't over something that simple seems terrible customer service and customer experience and all of it. Like, that's terrible to do.
Yeah, I think if families feel that in working with a funeral home, they're going to be limited by what they can do, they're not going to want to work with a funeral home.
No, which is crazy. So they're talking about airbrushing. I think my favorite line of this whole episode is when the wife, who she's perfect for this role, and she's like, I was Hustler Beaver Hunt Lady of 1980, Hustler's Beaver Hunt Lady of 1980s in the magazine. And we met and it was just amazing. And I'm like, oh dear God, Hustler, like Beaver Hunt Lady of 1980s. That just, oh God.
Yeah.
So, and they want this Christmas Day funeral. It has to be on Christmas Day. We got a keg coming in. We're all going to be here. And they're like, but it's Christmas Day. We don't do it. And they're like, we'll pay whatever. And they like, here's all our money. And they're like, okay, we'll do it. So then they have to break all that news to, mom and everything. And they start all having flashbacks. I think that's the moment I realized, oh crap, this is 1 year anniversary, is because they flash back to some of the dad stuff of kind of what was going on and when they saw dad last and conversations they'd had with him and such. And Dave flashes back and then he's walking around in his prep gown in the house. Was the last time he took the call from his dad or talked to him in person or something.
Yeah.
And he was all the way up in the kitchen in his preparation gown. And I'm like, that's so gross. Like, even if you were just cosmetizing or something, you don't wear what you were wearing in the prep room 2 stories up to the kitchen where there's food and like, that's just gross.
My hope is that he hadn't started yet and he was just getting his supplies out, because he came up looking for a bottle of, I think, jaundice fluid.
Yep.
So maybe he hadn't quite started and he was just getting things pulled out and you realize, oh, I got to get some jaundice fluid or talk to dad, because otherwise that's kind of gross.
Well, and how many people reuse gowns? I mean, they wear them for a couple of embalmings because they don't get it very messy. And so they're like, oh, I can wear this for another one. No big deal. I'm just hoping it was new and clean. And he had just happened to go back upstairs.
Well, he goes upstairs and his dad is up there and can't find the jaundice fluid. So he tells him, use this in whatever amount. I forget what he says. I don't know that fluid, but maybe you color guard. I don't know color guard. Is that real?
I don't
think so.
Maybe 20 years ago it was.
Maybe it was. I don't
even remember that from 20 years ago, though.
Yeah, how quick do you guys Google things on this podcast? Yeah,
go right ahead.
We do Google. We do Google.
Gosh,
there's some words and things were
I was thinking, well, I wonder if that's accurate or not, but I have no idea because I don't know that name. So maybe it was, maybe it wasn't. But he's, telling him to sit down and take a break and all this stuff. And so it's just kind of a nice moment, between the two of them.
Frigid
color guard.
There's a frigid fluid, color guard 1 jaundice fluid, 24-pack.
Huh. Well, now we know. All right. Okay, it's a jaundice fluid.
Why my brain just went to look to the visual of 24 of them connected by those little plastic things. Like, I don't know why, but my brain just went right there. That is not how fluid comes at everybody. It comes in a box with little dividers between all of it. And that's it.
There you go.
It does not come in like a 6-pack with plastic rings around it at all. But
no, it does not.
That's right where my mind went, though.
Gonna go to the grocery store and pick up a 6-pack of fluid.
Hey,
color guard.
6-pack of color guard there. Hey.
Oh, well, Brenda is a big part of the story, of course. She's off in left field. And this episode, she's wandering through the mall, doing some last minute shopping, sees a guy. There's never like any words, but she's like, they're flirty with him and then ends up like rubbing on and with him and putting her hand up. And it's just,
we were talking about this, I think it was last time. Like, in what world does this woman or any person, everywhere they go in public, have some kind of interaction with a stranger?
Like, pick up a man and
is happening here.
Throw himself at her over
Every
just a
time she
look.
goes somewhere, she has the opportunity to have sex with a stranger. Are we doing something wrong? Like, what's happening? 'Cause this doesn't, I don't go into Target and find dudes or women, I
Maybe you
just don't.
could, and you
Well, but
just
that's why I
are
said we
not,
got to try and see if this is
you're not
how
putting
this
it out
goes.
there. And
Uh,
I know, and I told her, I said, Cece and Josh will not approve of this, I think. So,
It's just absurd to me. Every time she goes somewhere, she's doing something with like, what in
yeah.
the world?
Well,
That's very unrealistic to me.
and it's
Yeah,
Billy.
I don't have a lot of comments about that. I have the same. I'm like, how is that just part of your normal? It's like a Tuesday for her. You're like, oh, it's just another day, and I went to the store and did this, or had this random weird. It's like, how? I don't know. Yeah.
She keeps just saying it's research for her book. So I think she's convincing herself that it's okay because it's just research and it needs to happen. And it's ridiculous. So she does that, but then she goes to meet Nate at her mom's place for this dinner. And he gives her grandma's ring. So then she feels guilty as all heck because he
Surprise.
her like a
Yeah.
big deal thing and she's a butthole.
Yeah.
And so they go into mom's house and she's like, surprise, Merry Christmas. Like, I'm back. And is it
And
her
then
dad?
Billy,
Oh,
no, Billy.
no, Billy's there. Billy's there. Yes.
Yep.
Oh, God bless Billy. How do you
Billy,
feel about Billy, Gabe?
The guy, I mean, from a character standpoint, the guy's nuts. I mean, but that whole family's nuts. It's not like
are.
it's a normal family and Billy's weird. It's like the whole family is got their own crazy issues. So there's that. On another level though, like, man, I've seen that actor. I can't remember the guy's name, but I mean, he's been in some Law and Order stuff and some FBI.
Yeah.
Like, he's a good actor. The guy's got some
Yeah, he
depth.
is.
I mean,
Yeah.
but yeah, the character, I mean, just that whole family is just, it's a dumpster fire. Like, I don't know. I mean, I don't know if I was Nate, I like, I don't know. Like, he's a braver man than I am. That's for sure. To be like,
Yeah.
oh yeah, that's
And
the girl I want to be with. But
it's,
you
yeah.
know,
It's interesting how they, Billy, so his mom he was in the hospital for his mental health, and his mom has, I guess, I don't know what you call it. I mean, removed him from it, signed him out. I don't know.
broke him out. That's
Broke
what
him out,
she's like,
essentially,
broke him out.
right? So
Yeah.
he's been in there for, probably a good long while. Doesn't say how long, but a long while.
3 months.
And yeah, it's
It can't be
months.
that long, but I mean, about
Well,
3 months, maybe.
Yeah, probably. I mean, yeah, it's, a fairly significant amount of time. And um, he looks 15 years younger. And so I think it's an interesting, and you see that with Billy throughout the show. When you can tell how his mental health is by the way he appears, which I think is pretty realistic for many people. So he looks great. He's clean, cleaned up. He seems to have a lot more control over how he speaks and reacts to things, and even his body language is a lot calmer. And so, so it's, her mom did this on purpose, didn't tell Brenda Billy was going to be there. And now they're there and he's finding out that they're engaged and all this stuff is going on. And it's just extremely awkward because he went into the hospital because he tried to attack his sister with a knife. And now here he is. Surprise.
He's fine. No big deal.
Yeah.
Everything's cool. He's just serving drinks and chilling out.
Yeah.
And
It's
yeah.
more therapy.
Yeah.
It's not a problem.
Yeah.
So we get that whole surprise and it kind of pops over to like Keith trying to make Christmas dinner and it's a big fail and he's getting all upset and that's going haywire.
Don't
And
make
then-
figgy pudding.
No, it was
Nope.
terrible. And then
Not a hit.
Ruth goes to find Nikolai and finds him all hurt and there was a fight and they don't really go into why, but all of a sudden he's just there at the house. She's
He's
moved.
got 2 broken legs. He's been attacked by somebody and his legs are broken and that's all we really know. And now he's on the couch
For 8 weeks.
for 8 weeks.
For this crazy guy that she's not even like seriously dating. Like,
Right.
at
But do
all.
you think that's a Ruth thing where she just wants to mother and she just wants to take, like, she wants that sense of purpose.
Yes.
And her kids are all growing up and they're all making their own decisions and not following along with her path. So now she's got this guy with 2 broken legs where she can nurse him and mother him and whatever. So now she has a sense of purpose again. Like I think there's something there.
There's that too. And Ruth, I think Ruth is an interesting person from a psychological perspective too, because I think she plays what they would call the waif, if you know what this is a lot, where she puts herself in a situation and then gets mad that she's in that situation. So like she will try to care for somebody, then she's poor put upon Ruth, even though so it's kind of like, and that she kind of did that
martyr.
There, yeah, like a martyr, like that, yeah. And so it gives her, whether she's aware of it or not, something else to do that she can then be mad about. I don't know. It's a really weird thing with her, but it's a very, very much a real like psychological thing people do that need to feel needed. Mm-hmm. And that's what it is for her.
Well, and then we get to the funeral. So this funeral, which biker families are probably my favorite funerals because I've had such good experiences with every group that I've encountered. They are so dedicated. They are super emotional, like big, beefy guys in leather vests crying like babies. Like, and I love the paradox of that, maybe. I love reading the stickers on all the helmets, and I love it. I think it's been a good experience always for me. So I was excited for this episode to watch the bike.
I think that's an incredible culture that, any movie you see, you watch, oh my gosh, I'm drawing a blank. Sons of Anarchy or the Mayans, or, you see biker gangs driving on the highway, like, oh, these badass guys, oh, they're scary. And then you go on Instagram and you see, what was the story last week about, there's a whole bunch of motorcyclists that came out to honor that, I think it was a kid in Indiana who had killed himself.
Okay.
It was like an insane amount of bikes.
Yeah. And they're out there support, and it's like the nicest people. And you look at them and it's one of those don't judge a book by their cover, by its cover kind of situation, right?
But yeah. I don't remember what the group was, but there's a group here that if you need like security, they're not real security agents of any kind, but if like you, for whatever reason, feel like you need that presence there, they'll come to funerals or cemeteries and they'll like
the Patriot
show
Guard.
Force, and
the Patriot Guard does
Patriot Guard. There we go. Yeah.
They block against those stupid buttholes and
test. Yeah.
Yes. I hate them. They were in one episode. We had one episode when the the gay kid was beat to death. They were some of those, but yeah, I love, you see those stories like, oh, a whole bunch came to a little girl's, lemonade stand, or, whatever the scenario. And I love it. I just think it's awesome because it is such a big community that they can call upon each other to rally for different organizations and situations. And I think there was a story of this. It was a little girl or little boy was getting bullied at school, and somebody found out. So they all took the kid to school and stuff. And I just love that stuff, those kind of things. But so we get to see this casket for the first time, and it's gorgeous.
Yeah.
Turned out great.
It's so fun to, I think, do those are like wrapped caskets that are personalized with wrappings of different pictures and things on it. But I love the airbrush. I think that's, the air spray, whatever. I think that's so cool. Like,
it is cool. I wish that this episode had included anything about, restoration of a motorcycle accident. We didn't get anything about that, which I think was a lost opportunity. Honestly, from that perspective, but I've seen a lot of those kind of deaths, and I'm sure you guys have too, and it completely runs the spectrum of injury. But I was surprised they didn't even have a comment or anything about any of like restoration or anything like that.
How he looked, or
like road rash, like a great opportunity to talk about road rash and if it's on his face, like what you would do or something, or because I feel like this was a perfect opportunity for Rico to have a moment with another restoration, depending what he looked like and stuff. But we obviously know the helmet didn't stay on. So
Yeah.
maybe there was some trauma that could have been tended to. But yeah, they really didn't talk about that, or how hard riding boots are to put on a deceased. Let's talk about that. He was dressed in his riding boot.
Or those leather jackets, they don't have any give and then they want back and that kind of stuff. Or the vests are the way to go. But I mean, it's common, I think, at least for me, with biker families, that they would want them dressed in some kind of thing and then they would want it back. I saw like that was common for in that, whether it was like some kind of personalized jacket or some kind of like personalized belt thing or something. But yeah, a lot of that stuff is not easy to get on and off.
Right.
I've
seen them where maybe a guy's buried in like an older riding jacket, one that he doesn't use, and then they'll have like the cut on display, or the vest or the cut. They'll have it on display, like on a hanger or something, like next to the casket, or draped on the casket, or whatever.
Yeah, I like it when they bring the bikes in the chapel. Like if you're line them all, we used to line when we had a biker funeral home. All the friends would line their bikes up around like the funeral home, and people would have to park in a different lot. But it was cool. And then you would go. I liked those processions too, because those were always so much fun. I shouldn't say that the procession was so much fun, but you know what I mean. They were just there was something about, even if it was a sad situation, those biker funerals, in my experience, there's always been some level of like, not joy, but some kind of something there that's often lacking in other services. And I can't think of the right word, but it was almost
energy.
Energy of
Like I always rush outside because I want to be there when the
community
bikes all start.
Thing.
Because the rumble of all the bikes starting up, even if
you gotta have them start in like this way, so it kind of goes.
Oh, it just you feel it in your gut. It's so
and that formation, when they ride and they're staggered, and it just everybody's the spacing is just right. And the thing I'll say that I like too, and this is another cool biker thing, is like you look at the personalization. When you talk in the funeral profession about how important it is to personalize and share somebody's story. Something I love about going to biker rallies, like living in Milwaukee, Harley Davidson does their homecoming rally every year. I've been to Sturgis in the past. I've been to a couple of different local bike rallies and rides and everything. And one of my favorite parts is seeing all these different bikes and the personality. Like you can go to the dealership and buy a bike, but then you make it your own by finding that, the custom painter or getting the different parts and tweaking it. And people put their personality and put who they are into that bike, and it'll really tell that story of that person. And I think that's really special to be able to walk through and see that too. And likewise, like that's why we have that motorcycle on display, the deceased motorcycle on display, in the chapel or outside the funeral home, because you can look at that and go, that's his bike. Like, there's other models of that bike, but there is no other bike in the world that looks like that or set up like that. Like that's all that individual. And I think that's really cool.
Don't like, but even if you're not like a motorcycle person, I think there's just something so cool about seeing them like that. And there's a Harley Davidson museum somewhere that I've been to. I don't remember where.
Here.
Is it Milwaukee?
Oh yeah.
That makes sense. Yeah, my sister lives there. My sister lives in Milwaukee, so that makes sense that that's where I would have gone to it. It's been
I take the kids there at least once a year. Yeah.
It was you know what? It was when my sister got married. That's exactly when it was. And I was like, oh, I don't want to go to the Harley Museum and walk around with you guys. And it truly was one of my favorite museums I've ever been to. It was really
awesome.
Cool. There's something about just the, and Cece loved it, all the different motors and all this stuff. But there's something about a motorcycle, and I don't know what it is, even if you're not a bike person and don't ride them and aren't, into them, just seeing them like that. There's such cool things, and all the different styles and all the different ways you can personalize them are really neat. So when you do have them all lined up in front of the funeral home or whatever, it's like, it's almost like a depiction of just like all those people's friends.
Oh, yeah.
Their individual, personalities too.
Well, they're talking about, there's the flowers being sent, and Jay Leno sent a bouquet of flowers, which I think was so out of left field.
Is he a biker? I don't know.
He's a car guy.
He's and so, but I thought it was just like a weird name drop in there, but who knows why, but maybe just to show like who this guy was within maybe the community.
Oh, maybe.
I have no idea, but
famous people do come to funerals though, or, sometimes.
Yeah. So, and then Claire's talking to the guy that she met at her aunt's,
Yeah.
like, yeah, whatever you want to call her party she had out in the woods, her hippie rendezvous thing. And,
Toby. Yeah.
yes,
Toby.
Toby. Yeah, he's there. So we get to see him a little more. They've been hanging out and chatting. And she's like, yeah, I remember this time. And the embalming drains backed up and blood started coming out of the hose. And I'm like,
Here's what she said that bothered me. Here's what she said that bothered me. And I don't know. I kind of know why. She said, and that was the first time I realized what they did down there.
Yeah, that's one of those. Hey, you're just trying to get some attention.
I have to remember that I have been doing this my whole adult life, and to me, what we do down there is nothing. But to other people, it's probably something spooky and gross. But I was just like, man, I don't know. Something about the way that was said was like what they do down there. They make people's loved ones, in better shape, or they help people, whatever. That's what they're doing down there.
Mhm.
I get real
she's
agitated
never really
about that.
talked like that. So I wonder if it
Yeah.
was because of who she was talking to.
Maybe.
Because she really hasn't described things like that. But I think
Yeah.
she says things for response, just
Mhm.
like when she's taken the guys to the prep room, because she took in one of
Babe,
those first
and that
episodes, she
dad,
took the
guy,
Hispanic gang guy
yeah,
down, and then she took what's
like
it?
shock value thing, kind
Yeah,
of.
I think
Yeah.
there's
Yeah,
something
I
to
can see
it,
that.
just to see what kind of response she's getting. So Nathaniel invited Claire to ride with him when he died. And that story comes out that Nathaniel had said, hey, Claire, do you want to ride along to get your brother at the airport? And she
Yeah.
said, no. So we find this out that she should have been in that car with him and possibly could have died as well. And she's been carrying that this whole year, and we never have heard this
Mhm.
information. And it kind of resonates with maybe why her reaction was a little more outlandish than, the foot thing and everything coming after, just because
Yeah.
had more to deal with
Mhm.
that she just hasn't voiced yet,
Yeah.
which is a
Yeah.
lot.
Yeah. Well, and you think about that too, like it's a good reminder, even at the beginning of the episode when the guy dies, you know, his wife says something sarcastic to him, and he says something sarcastic to her, and they give a kiss and they walk out thinking, yeah, I'll see you after my Santa shift. And Claire was I can't go with you, I got a thing, whatever, I'll see ya. And just, he gave her a kiss and was trying to be affectionate, and she didn't really respond back. And then even Ruth, when she said goodbye, and I'm sorry to get ahead of you, but like, she threw a piece of celery in the guy's mouth and was like, all right, see ya, and walked out. And you never realize it's going to be the last time to see that person. So you reflect on that and you go, oh, like that was it. I didn't get a hug. I didn't say goodbye. I didn't say I love you. I shoved a vegetable in my spouse's face, and that was it.
Yeah.
Oh, like, and you realize that kind of for each of them, like the son, David didn't want to drink a shot of rum with his dad and decorate the tree and talk to him. Like that was, and you go, man, there's like multiple instances where this guy just wanted to be affectionate with his family, and now he's gone and you missed it. And now you got to live with that. And that stinks. I've been there personally, and I still carry some of that, and that's a crappy feeling. It really is. And they loved you. They knew that you loved them, but man, you wish you could have that moment back. And yeah.
Well, they kind of make it out to be, I feel like, over the course that dad was so distant, dad was always working, dad was never around, but they kind of show in all these last interactions, like dad was there.
Yeah.
Dad was smoking weed while you were smoking weed. You could have maybe shared a moment. Dad invited you to go along. Dad was trying to get you to do something with him. Dad wanted to give you a kiss and, say goodbye to you before he left. And you all kind of blew him off.
Yeah.
In a lot of ways. And that's a hard pill to live with, all of them having done that in a way, which is
it is.
Did
you watch this show when it first came out? Gabe, did you watch it? Because you and I are same age. Did you watch it the first? Not the Kari's older than us by like 2 months. It's fine.
Right.
But we're the same age as Claire. I don't know if you realize that, but like Claire, we're right around the same age as Claire.
Oh, I didn't think that.
Yeah, she was born in
Okay.
1983. So we're
Yeah.
right around there.
No, so I didn't see it. When did it come out? Was it
2001.
Was it 2001? So
And I remember
would have been.
oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I would have been in college. I
Yeah.
had a bunny ear antenna on a TV, and that was about it. I think the first time I actually watched 6 Feet Under or started watching it, I was in Iraq. It was 2004.
Okay.
And they had season 1, a DVD set of season 1 in the PX. And we were all looking for movies all the time. I was like, yeah, I should do that. So I had 4 or 5 guys, and a couple of nights a week, we'd sit down and watch an episode of 6 Feet Under on a small TV in the middle of the desert. So
wow.
Your story beats ours.
That's better. But
sorry
no. Yeah. The point was that like watching it the first time, I saw the parents through like the eyes of like Claire, the youngest of all the kids. And now watching it again, I'm closer in age to the parents than Claire, and it's a totally different experience because now I have a lot of sympathy for Ruth and feel a lot of those things that, you know, maybe the dad was trying to, you know, connect with the child or whatever, where the first time I watched it, I was like, these parents are so annoying, they need to go away. So I just had wondered if you'd seen it the first time, if you felt the same, because we're now
but that's
probably we're now closer in age to Ruth and Nathaniel than we were Claire if you had watched it when it came out.
I think Ruth is only like 50. Like she's
she's older than that, isn't she? Well,
I have it written in an episode. I will find that while we're talking because I found it.
She was like 18 when she was 18 or whatever when she had Nate, and Nate's 35. So she's, what's that? 53?
Yeah.
So do math in public.
She's not that much older than me. And it's freaking, I just threw my note. Like, it's wild to me.
Yeah. So I'm like 10 years younger than Ruth is now. And the first time I was 19.
Well, we've got this whole event going on downstairs, and Ruth's like, all right, it's time for dinner. We're having our Christmas dinner no matter what. They're stumbling around drinking all day downstairs. And so they're in it because Nate's like, okay, guys, it might be time to go. And he goes, we're here for the duration. So you might as well do your thing. So they get upstairs and slowly everybody comes together, you know, Nate and Brenda, and Claire's got her dude, and Dave's there, and then in comes Keith and Taylor. And so the whole family's kind of coming together, and we got Nikolai's there and Ruth. And so Ruth's kind of got her moment, and she's very happy, I think, with that. And so they have their big, nice dinner, and Claire and Brenda share a moment where they're drinking, talking about how they both need wilder guys, which I think we're feeling from Brenda, and Claire's not digging Toby. Toby. It's kind of I
gotta say, was that the smallest goose ever for that many people?
Like this. It was little.
Not that we have to dig into that, but I remember like her, and I was like, and here it is. I was like, oh, well, okay.
Well, and Dave is so happy. Like there's this beautiful, like Dave is just feeling like he's able to openly for a holiday enjoy this moment with his partner, and everything seemingly is going good, which is awesome. We flash over to Rico though. So Rico has had this incident where he walked in where his cousin's building is, you know, doing remodeling, and he finds him having sex with another man, and he tells Rico tells his wife about it and says, don't tell anyone. So his cousin and his wife and the kids come over for Christmas, and then Rico gets punched out.
Yeah, because she tells the wife. I don't know. That'd be a hard position to be in, to know something like that. And I don't know.
What do you do?
I don't know.
I mean, if you know someone is, to me, it's not even that he's having sex with a man, like, you know, he's cheating on her is like my brain vantage point. And I've known where people are cheating on other people. And I'm like, do I get involved? Do I not get involved? Do I leave a note? Do I send something anonymous? Like, what do you do? Do you be that person? Do you not?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Especially if it's family. Do you?
Right. That's a tough, because you see how that went. He told her that don't tell anybody. Well, she tells the wife, and then Rico gets punched out. Now he's mad at the wife for telling her, whatever. And
Not gonna
and when really he didn't do anything wrong, but now he's upset. And it's just but yeah, it's family. You gotta protect your family. You gotta, I don't know. I don't want to find myself in that position. Let's just say that. That's a hard thing to wrap your head around.
Like I feel like Rico, because what Rico said to Dave that time in the prep room when they were talking about being gay and being with men, and he said, you don't talk about that. I don't want to know about that. That's something you don't talk about. It can happen, but you don't talk about it. It's just not a thing. So to me, I feel like I would have expected his reaction to have been more like not talking about it, but when his wife pushed him, why isn't he doing the work? That he would have said, oh, XYZ, and made up a story to not put it out in the air just because of how, we don't talk about Fight Club kind of thing, if it's happening.
He was pretty frustrated though. I mean, the drywall was not going well. She was giving him crap. I've been there. It was a moment. I've worked on stuff where I look at a fix and I'm like, oh, this will take me 2 hours. I'll knock it out. And, it's 3 days later and it's like, why isn't this done yet? And you're just like, you know why? And then you don't think about it. So that could have been a slip of the tongue. You never know, but all kinds of frustration. Plus it's his house.
Right.
I mean, that thing, now he's going to look at that wall forever and be like,
and know that, he was doing it in his home.
Yeah.
Instead of like him walking into cousin's home and him doing it there, it was on his territory, his space, something he doesn't condone. And that was so we don't really know what's happened after that. It just kind of explodes. Claire decides she's too sweet or Toby's too sweet for her. It's just too much. So she's like, no thanks. And he's like, well, you just like to shit all over everything.
Yeah.
Like you like to just make everything negative and bad. And I'm like, to me, that struck a chord with me because Josh tells me sometimes, he's like, it doesn't always have to be something, Kari. Like it can just be and be fine. Like it doesn't have to always be a problem or be whatever. And Faith knows because I ramble about problems all the time. But so that kind of resonated. I was like, oh, maybe I need to listen to Toby.
I think you know what I think, because I've heard that too. And what I think is in some families or maybe in some parts of the country even, I don't know, but like for me, the best way I like to bond with people over commiserating.
Yeah.
And like I don't know why, but that's just that's how I grew up. That's how everybody would get together and just complain.
Yeah.
And like it could be the nicest day to be like, yeah, it's a beautiful day, but it was always, and that was how that's how people like connected and bonded was over, commiserating about stuff. And so I don't know. I mean, that's my natural inclination is just to commiserate about stuff with people, but to me it's not negative. And Cece said that too, and she grew up in a different part of the country and she was like, you're just always so negative. I'm like, but I don't feel negative inside. That's just how I don't know. They say there used to be a dating app where instead of matching with somebody based on what you liked, you matched on what you both hated, and it was like way more successful. So I just think, I don't know. I wonder if it's a Midwest dating, because I know there's like Midwestern nice, but like you sit on the porch and you bitch. So I don't know. I mean, I see what he's saying about Claire, but I also think that just because somebody, I don't know, just because that's kind of how they bond with other people doesn't necessarily mean they're a negative person. So I don't know.
I think it's selective. Like my wife and I have moments where we sit down and I'll complain about stuff to her and she complains about stuff to me. But there are times on either end where I'll push things too far. And she's like, you get it. You're beating a dead horse. Let's move on. Or I'll do the same thing to her. It's like, okay, we're talking about this again. Okay. How many more rounds we got to go with this? Cause we've said everything. We're just repeating it and it gets a little frustrating. So I get the commiserating and unifying, but sometimes it gets old. And I think with Claire, I mean, every moment she had to put some stank on it, she did.
Yeah.
She didn't miss an opportunity. And you know what? I've been with people like that. I've been friends with people like that. And it does get old when it's like, wow, you can't just, it's like you're forcing it. It's like you're just, you know what? I want to be this Grinch of a character.
Yeah.
Just run with the pun there. And I'm just, I'm going to find the negative in every single thing. It gets old after a while.
Yeah.
So sometimes it's justified, but sometimes it's like, all right, we're done.
Yeah.
Let's move on.
Hater is that app. It's called Hater.
Hater
is the dating app. Yep. Well, we get to the scene where Nate is sitting next to the bikers, next to Jesse's wife. And she says two very distinct things that I loved. Whenever I write quotes, I know they're good. And then when I reread them, I'm like, oh my God, that's so funny, or that's so good. So one, she says his two fave things were riding his hog and riding me. And she just says it so like a beautiful memory is in her head. And I love that. I just love that kind of thing. Like they've been together for, 30, 40 years at that point or whatever. And she's just, I love that.
And you take the Hustler Beaver Hunt photo comment, and to anybody else hearing that, you go, oh, that's no, but that really meant something to her. Like that was a special moment. And then riding his Harley and riding me again, anybody else here go, oh, gee, but to her, that was a beautiful thing. And I thought, I was like, wow, I get that. It's kind of sweet.
They're talking about his bike and stuff. And Nate says something like, well, what if he didn't have it? Or I can't remember what he says back to her. And she says, if he was careful and lived longer, he would have enjoyed it as much. Or he wouldn't have enjoyed it as much. And would I have enjoyed him as much?
Right.
And it's like, sometimes I think you want like stop smoking, you'll live longer, or don't go do that because you'll probably live longer. And it's like, well, are they enjoying life? Would they be as would I enjoy them as much if they were grumpy because they couldn't do something? Or you see people who lose the ability to do a hobby they love, and they're so miserable because they can't do something they love. And so we work with families that all say they just weren't happy the last few years because they had such arthritis. They couldn't, do woodworking, or they couldn't do this. And their light was kind of gone because out of their eyes, because they weren't doing what they loved. And, it just wasn't the same for them and stuff. And
there's definitely such a thing as living too long.
Yeah.
Did we talk about how Billy and Claire are talking on AOL Instant Messenger?
No, I didn't.
Now this is unrealistic, because if you notice, they're typing these messages, pushing send, and automatically they pop up. And this took 5 times longer than this in real life.
Way too quick.
Everybody that wasn't alive in this time, when you used AOL Instant Messenger, it was not like you type the message and there it is and they type back. It literally it took a lot longer to send and receive the messages.
Not quite as long as it did in 1995-ish, when it was first kind of, that dial-up.
Well,
and then it finally connected and you're like, yes. And then you finally got on, and then you'd get kicked off, and then you have to do it again. And then you could finally send something, but it's a little faster than that.
It was a little, it was, but it was not as fast as they showed it. I remember going, oh, that's not how I remember it. But I do not like her talking to this grown man. And again, now I'm looking at it from the perspective of a mother, and I'm like, what is this? Whatever old age I don't even know how old he is, 30, older, like older by a lot. Todd, why are you messaging a high school girl?
Well, why was he kissing her on the couch too?
I don't know.
Like, that's creepy. If you really step back and look at it, it's like, this is really bad. She's 18 at this point, though. So, because she says that, I think, in the next episode or something, that she's 18. So I will say, legality wise, okay, but still not okay.
Right.
Not okay.
Not okay. If he was 22, this might be a little different, but
I
If
don't
he's
know.
up in his 30s, that's
Well, if she's living in her parents' house,
yeah.
communicating with this older man, I just would have a problem with this. I just would. I don't know.
Well, as a mother, for sure.
Yes,
For sure.
Well, and
absolutely.
with what we know of Billy, and of course,
Yeah.
we're as an audience, we're privy to what he's all going through, so we know more than she probably does as the character, and so
Right.
now we're extra on guard. Because like, oh, that's the guy who, and maybe she doesn't know all that stuff too. But either way, I mean, just numbers. If you said, "Hey, my 18-year-old daughter is going to be talking to this 35-year-old guy at night on chat," like that sounds like an episode of Dateline.
Yes.
And
Terrible.
Nope,
Right.
that would be, we would turn the internet off at our house, is what we would do. That would
But
not
it's
be
her
happening.
seeking some thrill, just like Brenda
is.
does with
Mhm.
the forbidden fruit.
Yep.
And that's what I think she's going for, is that
Oh, yeah.
that thrill or energy, because it does finally give her a little joy in some way, and she's finding it hard, I think, to be happy in other areas.
Yeah.
So I put a note, did he break his legs himself? And I think I say this, I wrote this in even the next episode about Nikolai. I'm
How
like,
would you break your legs
I
yourself?
don't know. I can't figure out the logistics, but I just at the beginning of the episode, he says something to him, and Ruth have a little interchange about something, and she kind of blows him off, and then she finds him with his legs broke. And in my mind, all I could think was
The attention
he was
seeking.
attention seeking and like wanting her to care for him, because it was the first time she kind of pushed him away a little bit or something. And so he wanted to attach to her, and maybe he did this on his own. He trashed the greenhouse and like jumped off the tape. I don't know.
That is quite the
Wow.
Wow.
Wheels are a spinning. They're a spinning. Yeah. So I have no idea, but that was my thought.
Like, during that scene, what did get me is that they were like, "Oh, go pull up the car, call 911 if your place has been broken into and somebody's injured." What do you mean, go get the car? You're gonna get this 300-pound man? Call 911. It was just funny to me that like they like physically took him to the hospital, which I guess maybe that's a smart thing to do. I mean, there's no ambulance bill, but if a crime was committed and somebody, like, you want somebody on the scene, like, to document that, right?
Well, later on when she goes, "Did you call the police or file a police report?" And he's like, "Oh, I'll do that later." And it's like, no. And she goes, "Oh, okay." And like, tucks him in. And it's like, I'm getting my phone. We're going to make a phone call because that's a crime scene. Like
The
there's obviously
hospital
a
She's
scene.
such a
Oh, the
reactor
hospital, yeah.
to things. She always
Right.
reacts big. So for her to not react to this in any way, but, oh, good, I can take you home and feed you
And pay your insurance and
and pay all of your bills because you have no insurance. It's like, huh? Why, what? Yeah.
It's a really weird change from her kind of just being standoffish to him at the beginning of the episode to like now all of this. It's just a strange thing.
Yes, it's not normal for her character. Taylor's mom comes back, so she shows up, and she's been gone for a while. So she shows up, "Oh, baby, I'm home," and she's got presents for her and everything. And Keith looks at her like, "You got to be effing kidding me. Like, this is Christmas. I just had a great day with my man and his family, and now you're going to walk into this." And you can just see the sinking that he's going through. Nate and Brenda kind of have a fight, but then they make up and they're having sex, and he has one of his strokes.
Seizure. Yeah.
Seizures,
His seizure. Sorry, not a stroke. And so he has to tell her like what's going on. And he watching it, like, I'm believing it's happening.
Yeah, he did that well.
I don't know if he like watches videos of what he needs to, but I was like, what is going on? Like, I leaned in and was like in it with what was up, because I didn't know, and my mind didn't go to the place of, oh, he's having one of his seizures. I didn't even think that. I was like, what's wrong with him? And so he tells her the whole thing and about his condition finally. Like, can you even imagine hiding something like that from your
partner? No, I can't.
I feel like I would not be able to go 2 minutes without telling my person, let alone living there with them and going through all this it's like red flag central with those two.
Yeah.
They are. I can't even know if the minutes if the most minor thing happens. Can you believe this? That's right to my wife. Like I just the most minor thing. Like she gets a play-by-play every day long. I can't imagine having some like not. I guess not really terminal is at this point, but some kind of serious thing wrong with you and not telling them.
Yeah. Well, the end of this episode, it ends that Nate, where does he walk down to get this bike?
It's like in front of the funeral home.
No, he goes to have to the table and there's an envelope with the key inside.
Yeah.
So he goes down.
And it's like, does she pay the bill with that or does she gift it to him? I can't remember.
I feel like it was gifted. I got the impression that it was gifted after the conversation that they had in the chapel. Because he's talking about, he had the bike and he laid it down and got a pin in his foot or whatever it was. And she's just talking about that feeling of freedom and everything. And I think that was that, that connection thing. So I would assume it was a gift, which, by the way, best gift ever. I've gotten cards. I've gotten like a case of beer. I've never gotten a motorcycle, but I would certainly love that from a family.
That's a pretty big deal. I don't know that I could accept that, especially with her having just lost him.
Sure.
Days before.
Maybe she just left it there so he could take it for a ride and it wasn't like for him to keep.
Maybe.
But I don't know. I feel
like if my spouse who was so attached to that bike and that was, like you were saying, Gabe, such an extension of who they were and what they stood for and their personality, that you would give that away so quickly. And I think as a funeral director, I would maybe take it for a ride or two, but then I would be like, listen, I think you're going to regret this in another week or so. So I'll hold on to it. Let me know when you want it back. Because I feel like we've talked about that, like with Ruth cleaning out Nathaniel's closet and, getting rid of things that are your loved ones too quickly or holding on to them maybe too long and finding that right moment. And I feel like he just died like 5 minutes ago and his funeral was like yesterday. And for her to give that to him. And by the way, how was it fixed up that quickly?
I was just going to say that. I was going to say, hey, you know what? You got to go back to the fact that it's a TV show. So like she gives him the bike, he takes it. Okay. In reality, would that happen? Probably not. But also, my question there was like, how did they get that fixed so quickly? I'm like, it's a TV Christmas. Show. So over Christmas. Yeah. Like
true. Like I didn't even think of that.
But maybe a few days had passed, like maybe a week had passed in there and we don't realize
that's a long time, or that's not very long still.
There's been a time lapse or something. I don't know. We got a casket, airbrushed in like a half a day. So, they know people, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe they do.
They know Jay Leno. So come on, there's got to be some people.
Right, yeah.
But
there you go.
Oh, this episode was good. I don't know if I've had one I've not liked. I think there's been some that have lacked a little luster because they're just like filler episodes to build the story. But this one, I just loved the biker side of it. I think so much.
They had good music. Yes. They were just
all the stereotypical biker songs.
All the stereotypical ones. I thought to myself, oh my gosh, but it's true, isn't it? I mean, I didn't hear Bob Seger, but.
I suppose, there wasn't. Yeah.
There was a Bob Seger motorcycle song, wasn't there? Did I imagine that?
Was that? Oh man, this is embarrassing. It's a podcast. Bad to the Bone, right? Was that Bob Seger?
No. Was there? I am often wrong, so please don't. I just thought Bob Seger was like a.
Oh, sorry. Bad to the Bone was George Thorogood. Man,
old time rock and roll.
Yeah.
So they played. I just looked up on this handy website.
This is why it's that Like a Rock song. That was the Chevy song in the 90s. That's what I'm thinking of.
So on the website, what-song.com, you can look up an episode of a show and it'll tell you all the songs in it. So there's a bunch of like Christmas ones, but then there's
Freebird,
Born to Be Wild, Midnight Rider, Green Grass and High Tides, Freebird, Don't Fear the Reaper,
mm-hmm.
Sweet Home Alabama. Those were all of them.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, very stereotypical what I would kind of pick for an episode like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was
Have you guys ever had Freebird played at a funeral, by the way?
The full version?
Full version
Yes.
on basically a phone at the graveside,
Oh dear.
cold, windy, and somebody's like, "Oh, I just want to,"
Oh my,
and you stand there the whole time.
that's something in it.
Yep.
That's a long time.
That's longer than Go Rest High, my friend.
Oh,
Well,
yeah.
I mean,
Like
that's a
13
long song in
minutes.
itself for different
Yeah.
reasons, but yeah.
Oh, that's
Oh
great.
yeah.
Oh, well, Gabe, thank you for joining us for this one.
Yeah, this is fun. This is great. I appreciate you guys having me on. Thank
We
you.
got way more seasons, so we'll call you back for another one.
All right.
Check out the Eternal Ride urn that you can put on your motorcycle, guys. I'll link the website and everything, and so you
Yeah.
can check that out. It's super cool. I'll tell all you.
Eternalride.com, and then it's on Instagram and Facebook as well. So yeah, check it out. Give us a like, reach out, say hi. So
Very
yeah.
cool. And again, I'm Kari the Mortician. This is Faith,
That's me.
Mortuary Professor. Check out all the links and everything below, and we'll see you guys on the next episode.
Bye.
Take care.